Hey everybody, I'm back from the disease. And you know what? I want to testify to what God has done in my life going through the disease. So I figured, you know what? Let's do this. Let's have a talk. Hey everybody, here I am. I made it. I made it through the disease. And the month of June was pretty much a blur for me. So I don't want to keep this a long video. Just wanted to kind of share some things I went through and give a little bit of a testimony, how God kind of worked on me through the process. And God really wants me to share some things that I've gone through. And I think this is one avenue of it. We'll get to the other part of it later. So in this Let's Talk video, basically what I want to do is I want to share what I went through, the physical part of what that disease did to me. Then I want to share the way He talked to me through the Word. But then I want to show you some open doors He gave me. And I'm going to kind of try to keep sharing bits and pieces of the Word through this so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. So, my experience with the disease. I want to be very clear. Listen, I know that there are people who had it a lot worse than me to the point of intubation, and even people that made it unto death. And thank God I didn't have to deal with that part of it. But I also had it a whole lot worse than a lot of other people got it. Enough so that I was admitted to the hospital for 6 days in order to get through it. And we'll get to that in a minute. But it all started for me back on the 25th of May. I went and got tested, and it came back positive. And I remember that night, the fever and the chills and the shivers. And I mean, like, the shivers weren't like, chill shivers. It was like, I was trembling, like I couldn't control it. It was just it was the most intense feelings I've ever had. Now, listen, all of us have been sick. We've all gotten the flu. I'm convinced it's not a flu, okay? So if anyone says it's just a flu, doesn't understand it. I really agree with a couple of these holistic doctors. They believe it is how do they put it? An infectious disease. And that's what it is. It's an infectious disease. It's not influenza. It's coronavirus. Oh, I just got dinged. Anyway, I went through it. And so my symptoms started with fever, chills, heavy trembling, like stuff I couldn't like stop. It was just the most incredible feeling that I've ever been through. And then it took my appetite. And I would say through the process of 6 days, I didn't eat anything. I drank a lot of water, but I could not eat. And here's why. Because in the next phase of this, it was a lot of diarrhea and not a lot of vomiting, but I was vomiting. And I thought to myself, I don't remember anyone ever talking about the vomiting, but it was there for me. So I was in the viral stage of that disease at that point. And then by about the 7th or 8th day of going through this, the headache was so bad for 4 days that my wife and I she said, you know what, that's it. I'm taking you numbskull. You're going to the emergency room. And they gave me an IV fluid and a couple of painkillers in the IV, through the IV. And then they gave me a prescription for not prednisone, for a steroid and for a something to help with the migraines. It was almost like a painkiller, but it had antihistamine in it and some caffeine. Didn't take but maybe 2 doses of it, and I just didn't take it anymore because 2 days later I was back in the emergency room from that experience, and that was probably day 11 at my lungs. So I took. Let me backtrack. I'm a little ahead of myself. So I took the first dose of the steroid they gave me and the painkiller, and it knocked me out. So I went to sleep pretty early that day. Took like a 2-hour nap. Woke up and I was like, oh, I feel great. And 2 nights later was a Saturday night going into a Sunday, and my wife woke me up and she said that she was scared because my breathing was not good. And I didn't realize it, but my lungs had completely what they called white out, and I had the last phase of this, which put me in the hospital, was the COVID pneumonia, is what they call it. I was diagnosed with COVID pneumonia and hypoxia at the hospital. So that was when, for me, things got really scary. And the second night for me was a gut check. It was my call. And I remember going through that, and I remember the fear I felt, but I also remember the presence of God. And I'll never forget, because to me that was the beginning of my second chance, is what it feels like. And I remember calling Lisa that morning and telling her how scared I was, and we kind of wept together and prayed, and then the doctors got a protocol together, and they were able to get the inflammation down. They were able to get my inflammation markers in my body way down, which was really good, because that's what was eating me up. And it was able to work on it was also able to get the inflammation out of my lungs. And that was truly, truly a scary time for me. 6 days in the hospital, isolated, none of my family. That was pretty crazy. But 6 days later, it was a Friday night. Finally got out of the hospital, but I had to go home with oxygen, was what the doctor told me. And that was the only way she was going to let me go, is if I stayed on the oxygen. And I said, I'll stay on the oxygen, let me go home. And got home, and I was just so thankful and grateful to be there. And that was kind of my physical, in a nutshell, just kind of a 30,000 foot look at what I kind of went through from a physical standpoint. I just went through all of it, to the point even where at that night they were thinking about putting me on another level, on another floor in the ICU with more oxygen, and because they just, for whatever reason, it took them an hour and a half to get me right before they would leave the room that night. And I know how bad I felt physically that next morning. So that was scary times for me, but I'm so glad that God is working on me, and my body's coming back. I'm going to be dealing with this lung issue, they're telling me, for a long time, because there was a lot of damage done to my lungs. So bear with me if I sound a little winded. I'm giving you guys the best I got. So with that being said, that's kind of what I went through physically, and then when I got home, God really started working on me spiritually, and we'll get into that just here in just a second. So I think with most things, right, you go through the physical part of it, you come out of it, and then you start to kind of cognitively, you start waking up again. It was a week. It took me a week to where every time I got up, I was lightheaded, dizzy, and I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive for over a week. After I was home, the level of oxygen that I needed I had to be on it, just to get through it. But as I started to see things and go through things, and praying every morning, God starts speaking to me. And this is where I kind of want to start using some Bible verses here. So if you're with me, Job chapter 1. And I want to look at verse 8 through 12. So in Job chapter 1, in verse 8, it says, Then the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? And so Satan answered the Lord and said, Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has, on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands and his possessions. You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. So the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he has in your power. So the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person. And then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And that kind of stuck with me. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't that whole narrative that stuck with me. It was what God said at the beginning. He said, Then the Lord said to Satan, here's what I thought, and here's what hit me. Have you considered my servant Job? And I put my name there. Because we will be tested. We will be tried. And we will be found, if we are found, truthful. We will be found in his arms. Now listen, I'm not blameless, okay? I'm not. And I would never claim to be that. This is Job. This isn't, but this whole thing was, God said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? And that got me thinking, it's not always God giving Satan the right. Because Satan has to be given the right to touch God's kids. There's a scripture verse, there's scriptures in, it's in Psalm 66. Psalm 66, and I'm going to turn there, it's verse 8 through 10. And the psalmist writes, so that we understand this, right? God tries us. He tests us in anything. He says, oh, bless our God, you people. And Psalm 66, verse 8. Oh, bless our God, you peoples, and make the voice of his praise to be heard, who keeps our soul among the living and does not allow our feet to be moved. Now watch. For you, O God, have proved us. You have refined us as silver is refined. You brought us into the net. You laid affliction on our backs. You have caused men to ride over our heads. We went through the fire and through water. But you, O Lord, he's speaking of God, but you brought us out to rich fulfillment. Now, I know for me that's kind of how I felt going through this, because I had a lot of things like I think when you go through these experiences, literally a life changing, a life altering, a second chance, if you will, choice. You start to reevaluate who you are, what you want to do with your life, what do you see yourself as, why aren't you doing what you believe you're fulfilled to be called to be doing, and why are you just fulfilling somebody else's dream? And that hit me hard. And I know for me, I do not want to be doing what I do professionally for a living that I pay for things with much longer. I don't. And God opened some doors. He really did. And through the trial, he said, I'm going to lay things out. And he does this. He lays things out in front of us, and then he gives us choice. And I kind of also wanted to do this video because I want you to hold me to my video, to the things I'm talking about. So, and I wrote this stuff down. I'm a big writer. I like to write things down and take notes and keep memory. But one of the things that I really fail at is learning how I have to relearn how to take life day by day. I can't live Monday thinking of Friday and everything I got to do in the middle. I know the world sets us up for that, but that's the world. The secular things out in society set us up for that, but that's society. I am set apart and I'm Christ's child. I'm his. And he puts a calling on our lives. He puts a calling on all our lives. That if we fulfill that calling, we're not only fulfilling our joy, but we're fulfilling his because we're doing what he's asked us to do. And so that was one of my biggest downfalls before this. And I remember thinking and saying to my wife, why am I thinking about going back to work? It was like I got 2 weeks and I'm already thinking about that Monday. And I was like, I got to stop doing that. I'm already letting the stress of what I'm about to going back to, affect me. And I have to stop doing that. I heard that loud and clear. And I remember grumbling about it one day when I was doing my cardio outside. And I just remember the Lord just saying to me, what's your problem? I've laid things out in front of you. Why don't you do it? And so I had to listen. And he gave me the ability to stop and pay attention. I couldn't do much. I spent most of my time learning these last 2 weeks after I got out of the hospital. These last 3 weeks after I got out of the hospital. And God showed me some things. And I just want to share that even through the trials, God will open up doors for you if you want to go through them. So for me, the doors that he was kind of opening, that I was being stubborn with, scared, honestly, because of the fact that they could be blessed, was getting some books started that I had planned on writing a long time ago. But I don't know, and I'm not going to go through another publisher. I'm not going to say who the publisher was on the book that I wrote. This one, I don't remember if anybody's even looked to see that book before, but that's out on, I think it's still on Amazon, Colossians 3 Principle. They charged me more, and I didn't make a penny on it. It cost me a little over $3,000 to have that book published. And they're a Christian publisher. They didn't market it. They didn't do anything for it. So, but I held the copyright to this book. So I'm going to republish it. I'm going to do a reboot, and I'm going to do it myself. And I was like, Lord, how am I supposed to do that? I don't know how to do self-publishing. And he showed me something, and I don't know if you remember in the last video, if you watched the whole video, I had on one of my Redbubble shirts, print-on-demand stuff. Well, he was also guiding me into that. And he's like, I've given you a platform for years now. You've been staying away from it, and you've been doing these other two platforms, but you're not doing the one I'm showing you. And the one he's been showing me to do print-on-demand for is merch by Amazon. And I've always been kind of nervous because that's a huge marketplace. There's a lot of money to be made there, and there's a lot of things you can do with it. But I was scared because you have to apply for an invitation. So through this time, I said, okay, I can't grumble about something if I've got things laid in front of me and I don't want to do it. So I applied. And in the meantime, I'm watching videos about how to apply, how to get in, and man, I heard some stories like, oh, it took me 2 months before they replied to my application, or one guy had to apply 13 times. I applied once, and on the third day it's crazy to say that, but on the third day I got accepted into Amazon. And now I am a print-on-demand designer for their merch by Amazon division. And now I get to create basically print-on-demand t-shirts, throw pillows, things like that, and I'll be marketed on Amazon. And I've already got 2 uploaded, and I'm waiting for them to be approved. But I got 10 spots I got to fill up front, and then after that it goes to 25, and then after that, you build up. And through that, I was watching a video, and the guy's like, one of the guys I was watching said, I also do Amazon KDP. And I was like, well, what's KDP? Amazon KDP is Amazon's Kindle print self-publishing division. Excuse me. Self-publishing sector, I guess, whatever you want to call it. So I'm watching this video on Amazon KDP, and it just completely clicked. Here's the end. God was moving me into things that I number one, didn't really know too much about KDP, but I did know about Amazon merch. And at the perfect time, he laid it out for me. And then he gave me a vision. I'm going to tell you right now up front, from probably the second or third day being in this, God really gave me a vision of when I was sick. You're going to write a book about this. Okay, I'll write a book about it, Lord, if you say so. And I mean, I've got chapter titles already done. I've got dates. I've pretty much tried my hardest to, when I heard that, I was like, okay, I would just write a little date and something just so I remembered it. But that's one, so I'm going to write that, and now I can publish it on my own. I don't have to worry about anybody ripping me off. I'm going to do a reboot of the Colossians 3 Principle. I can do it on my own. I don't have to worry about anybody ripping me off. He also gave me this idea, and I don't know, here, I'll show you. In the Colossians 3 Principle, at the end of every chapter, I would do this little thing right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's called a principle reflection. And basically what it was a devotional type thing with a call to action at the end of every chapter. And I said to my wife, I said, I could do a devotional book. She's like, yeah, why don't you? So there's going to be a devotional book. And then this book, the Colossians 3 Principle, is going to become like a series of books. So the next one coming is going to be the Ephesians 5 Principle. So that's going to be the second one, and then I honestly think that the next one after that will be out of Philippians. So there'll be a Philippians Principle book. So you see what I'm saying? Like there'll be a series of these books coming out, and I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to do all my own artwork. I'll be able to do all of it in my system, in my computer, in my graphics programs, and then I'll be able to upload it to Amazon KDP. It'll be digital and paperback, and it will be on Kindle and on Amazon to purchase. And I was like, but here's the thing, and here's what I don't want anyone to misunderstand. God gave me a vision, and He opened up doors, but I have to do the work. He's not just, here you go. He can do that if He wants, but I have to do the work. And that's where I'm asking you guys, kind of hold me accountable to it. So, and I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit, but in Psalm 119, 105, Psalm 119, verse 105, it says, Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. So even in the darkness, right? Even in those times where deepest darkness, where you think it's all over with you, I was there. God gave me a vision, and with that understanding, it's given me hope and a purpose. He's helped me to see the things I've done wrong. He's helped me to be repentant, of the things that I was. And God wants to do great and mighty things through all of us if we just let Him. If we just let Him, right? So I want to share this too. During the testing, we get angry, right? We get scared. We raise up, God, why are you doing it? Right? We do that kind of thing, and we don't understand, and why me? I'm better than this. It's like, I've been there, done it. And listen, there's an answer that God gives Job, right? It's Job chapter 38 through 41, and I'm not going to read it, but if you ever get in that situation, and you ever feel like, hey, you owe me an answer, go read Job 38 through 41. But what I want you to read, what I'm going to read with you now, is found in Job 42. Job chapter 42, verse 1 through 6. Let me get turned over there. This was Job's answer. And unless you think that God is kind of like, I am God, and I don't think God was giving him that in the answers that when in Job 38 through 41. I don't think God was acting like that. I think God was being very loving and very caring. And there was one spot in Job chapter 40 where God kind of let loose because it says there was a whirlwind. But in Job 42, this is Job's answer to God after God says, hey, who do you think you are? Because it was in a loving way. Because I think if God were to come down on him like a really judgmental person or situation, he wouldn't have followed it. But listen to what Job said in 42, in Job chapter 42, starting in verse 1. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do everything, and that no purpose of yours can be withheld from you. You asked, who is this who hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand. Job speaking of himself. He didn't understand. He says, things too wonderful for me which I did not know. He's understanding God's plan now. He says, listen please and let me speak. You said I will question you and you shall answer me. And I have heard you. Now watch this. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes sees you. Therefore, Job says about this himself, he says, I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. Listen, guys, when you're going through it, if you're paying attention, God makes himself manifest to you. I'm sorry, I get a little winded because of this COVID thing. God makes himself manifest to you. It's something else that's very interesting too. In the darkness, especially like when you're looking up into the sky, you ever notice that at night in the dark, you can see the depth of the universe, of God's creation. But during the day, it just looks like a blue, right? You don't see the depths of God until you're really going through something. Guys, I hope this little testimony, everything I went through, kind of God opening up doors for me and giving me a vision and giving me an outlet, I hope it helps you. God's not done with us. He loves his children. And even though I get to have a second chance, my prayer is for those of you that have lost loved ones. I lost the man who brought me to Christ a long time ago. I know that feeling. But God's working out his perfect will for all of us. So guys, I hope this helped. Just a little testimony time. Just wanted to share my heart with you. what I went through and how God talked to me and worked with me and has now given me a new vision and a new plan and a new hope to work through some things to get me to the next level in my walk with Him, but also to fulfill the calling that He put on my life so that I could get out of the secular rat race and be a part of His calling for me. Guys, take care. Till I see you next time. Just, lift a hand to Him and praise Him and be blessed and love you guys. And until the next time, peace.